إبراهيم وعلى إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. أما بعد. السلام عليكم. Alhamdulillah. Allah says in the Quran, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ الرَّءُوفُ الرَّحِيمُ. Allah says, there certainly has come to you a messenger from among yourselves. He is concerned by your suffering, anxious for your well-being, and gracious and merciful to the beloveds. Inshallah, in our short time together, we intend to discuss, inshallah, the greatest year known to the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, there is no other year greater than the year the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was born. Likewise, there is no greater year specifically for humanity other than the year the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam came in ruh wa jasad, in spirit and body, inshallah, to this particular realm. Likewise, there's no greater month for Allah's creation and humanity other than the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam coming in form and spirit, inshallah, to this particular realm. Likewise, there's no greater marriage, ain't no greater marriage, ain't no greater relationship goals other than the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's Amina, his parents, Amina radiallahu anha, and Abdullah radiallahu anhu. Likewise, there is no greater union of two people who have come together to procreate, right? To lay down with each other, inshallah, other than the parents of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And likewise, there is no greater night that we can fathom of, we can even imagine, like the night or other than the night the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam left from the birth canal of his mother and entered into this realm. And it is because of his reality, Muhammadan reality, inshallah, that we are particularly gathered here. If someone was to ask you what brought you here today, saying Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would be enough. That would be sufficient for us to say Muhammad brought us here. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. One of the pious said that the stories of the righteous, the narrations of the lives and the accounts within the lives of the righteous are armies that are sent to the hearts of the believers, and that they build a fortress of faith for them. You needy brother, I would go as far as to say, and I'm going to go as far as to say, that if the righteous, just in and of themselves, if their stories are armies, inshallah, then the stories within, about, and from the life of the emissary of the heavens and the earth, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, those are nations that are sent to the hearts of the believers. And we are in a time where people are in need of armies and more so nations to be fortresses within their hearts and their faith, to buttress their faith, to affirm their faith. Who knows what someone who is walking into just, a random coworker, what falsehood they may just try to flippantly, matter-of-factly place upon their mind and place upon their heart. Who knows what algorithm that these devils have concocted to land upon whatever we see within our phone feed that is going to place falsehood directly upon our eyes and our hearts. And who knows for our youth who are going into universities, whatever person that has been in place in front of the classroom, in a place of leadership, in a place of thought leadership, that has doctor on their title, that has PhD on their title, who knows what crap, what falsehood is going to be placed in front of them. So one would need a nation of faith to be able to survive these times. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to survive these times. Our story, a part of the story of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam begins within it a cathedral, a monument being built for two reasons. One, to show reverence for an Ethiopian king, or we say Abyssinian king, who has now taken dominion over places in like Yemen. And then two, someone who has built a monument to Christianity that is supposed to be placed directly in opposition, juxtaposed to the Kaaba built by Ismail and Ibrahim alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ennobled their faces. His name is Abraha. His name is Abraha. And we should all know this name. And even if we've been hearing this name ever since we've come out the womb, the Muslims are not a people of I've heard that before. We're not a people of I've heard that before. We are people of, oh, perked up ears, tell it to me again. And so Abraha, he builds this monument. And one particular evening, a man from the tribe of Kinana, he goes into this monument to Christendom, which was supposed to draw everybody from the Kaaba to the Yemen where it was. A man goes in there and he desecrates it. He spreads filth among it. And it is almost as if Abraha was waiting for the distinct opportunity to begin to turn his military might towards Mecca. And so when he gets word of this, it's almost like at the drop of a hat. He assembles an army. In that particular army, we know there's an elephant. We know elephants that uses its time and before this time and after the time. We know African general Hannibal, he had elephants in his army. And so he directs all of his forces to where he knows that these Arabs have come from. And he gets to Sana'a. He gets to Sana'a. This is a very important part of the story. He gets to Sana'a and he meets some people who try to bar him from marching towards Mecca. They thwart them immediately, right? He has thousands of cavalry, soldiers, or what have you. They thwart them immediately, and they take someone who has specific significance to this reality, and his name is Nufail. They take him as a captive, and they make Nufail be a guide for them towards going to Mecca. While Nufail, this is a sign of tawfiq, but also a sign of the intellect of the Arab. While they're going, he makes friends with Unais. And Unais is the person who's been training the elephant. And he makes friends with Unais. And while they're on their way, he's, mashallah, how do you tell it to go forward? How do you tell it to go backward? How do you tell it to go to the right? And he's just bopping, telling them how to control the elephant. While they're on their way going to Mecca to crush the Kaaba, this is their intentions that they set out to do, Nufail learns how to control the elephant in giving commands. So when they get to a point, Unais is telling them to go forward, but Nufail has tricked the elephant in thinking that forward is backward and backward is forward. Left is right and right is left. And goes on. And so they get to 2 miles outside of Mecca. They get to 2 miles, before they get to 2 miles outside of Mecca, they go to Ta'if. And they meet the people of Thaqif. And the people of Thaqif tell them, look, your quarrel is with the Kaaba. We don't want to get in your way about it. Even better, we'll assign you another guide to get there. And that guide died 2 miles outside of Mecca. His grave was stoned thereafter, right? This guide that said, I'll do it. I'll guide you to these people to destroy Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's house. So they get to 2 miles outside of Mecca. And when they lay out their encampments, the guide dies. And Abraha says, go out, pillage whatever you can. And then, we're going to carry on our attack at a later time. They go and they pillage, steal whatever they can. Most importantly, they steal 200 camels. Understand, young folks here, that's like somebody stealing 200 Bugattis off the lot. And so they take these camels back. And so after that, Abraha, now he's on his high horse, right? This is a sign of, we say Allah has istiraj, right? This is someone who's continuing to do well, not knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has their perishing right around the corner. And so what ends up happening is that he asks, well, who's the chief here? Who's in charge here? He sends a messenger into Mecca to see who's in charge. At this particular time, they do not have central leadership. They just have a few tribes that are gathered together that handle different duties and rights or what have you. But ultimately, inshallah, Abdul Muttalib, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ennoble his face, he's chosen to go see about what this general, with this extremely forceful army is camped out. What is he doing? And he's going to go see about these camels who happen to be his. When he walks into the encampment of Abraha sees him walk in, And he immediately thinks this must be some king or nobleman. He's sitting on like a raised couch. He gets up and he sits down beside him. And like somebody who is used to dealing with diplomats, dealing with governors or what have you, but he feels, I'm about to wipe this whole situation out. So I feel lordly, and he says to him, what can I do for you? Like, what can I do for you? What do you come for? And he's thinking he's going to beg him, please protect our family's lives, protect all the Kaaba, what have you. And Abdul Muttalib, radiallahu anhu, he says to him, I come for the camels. Abraha is astonished. He's astonished. What? You come for the camels? I'm about to raise the Kaaba. I'm about to destroy this monument that all of the peninsula comes to pay tribute to, trade at, or what have you. And he says, I come for the camels. He said, you come for the camels? He said, yes. And he tells him what he's about to do, what his intentions the next morning. And he says the famous saying that we've all, inshallah, we all hear, we continue to hear. He says, I am the Lord of the camels. As for the house, it has a Lord, and that Lord will protect it. And Abraha, astonished, said, okay, Bismillah, tomorrow morning we ride. We ride. Abdul Muttalib, radiallahu anhu, he leaves, he goes and he tells his people, hit the hills, go to the mountains. He gathers with some of his family members at the Kaaba. He grabs onto the door of the Kaaba and he makes dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect it. And that those people are not affected by whatever this man thinks he's going to do, inshallah. The next morning, this is when Nufail comes back into play. The next morning, Unais is getting the elephant ready. He's getting it closer to go towards the Kaaba and do whatever work has been trained all of his baby elephant life to do. And so he's telling it forward, forward, forward. And Nufail is watching, and it won't go forward, it won't go backwards, right? It just goes back. It won't even go forward. And so finally, it gets to a point where they say, all right, we got to do something to get it moving. So they start to stab the elephant with spears, and they start to do harm to it. And what ends up happening is they say, well, forget it. We can't particularly use this elephant. Abdul Muttalib, radiallahu anhu, he then sees the sky start to turn black. I'll get this baby, inshallah. He sees the sky start to turn black. And when it gets closer, what he sees in the sky are birds blackening the entire sky. And within their beaks and hands are rocks. And he completely vanquishes the army, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He completely wipes out this particular army. Come with this baby. Sunnah of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If a kid come, you don't just shoo it away. Pick up the baby, make sure you're okay, send them on their way, inshallah. Abraha's army is vanquished. Only a few of them survive. This particular year is marked as the year of the elephant. This is a happening that is so momentous in their history, they will start to track time by it. Likewise, when the Muslims made Hijrah, they made the Hijri calendar, the beginning of Hijrah, inshallah. The marriage of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam's parents happened within this same time. And the union that Abdul Muttalib radiallahu anhu, who walked his son Abdullah radiallahu anhu to the house of Wahab, the father of Amina, walked him to the house and wed his son to Amina radiallahu anha. And as custom, he stays there with the family. Abdullah radiallahu anhu, he stays there with the family. And after a time of them consummating, this is the best consummation of marriage that we have in our history, right? No two people that lay down in a better affair than the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam's parents, right? Because we got the Rasul. And so after a time, and their time is done, he has to go back to work. So he begins to go on travel, a business, inshallah, towards Gaza. While in Gaza, he returns, and on his return, he stops in Yathrib. He falls ill, and he is taken care of by his uncles in Banu Najjar. And so Abdul Muttalib is giving word about the passing of his son. Amina radiallahu anhu is giving word about the passing of her husband. But the reality of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has descended in her womb. And what happens while Amina has the emissary of the heavens and the earth in womb, there are people who are coming to visit her frequently every day. And what are they saying to her? They are saying, blessings on you. You are carrying the emissary of the heavens and the earth. You are carrying the master of our nation. So you imagine, somebody just get pregnant, and next thing you know, everybody that stop in, they got this weighty thing to lay on you. Sis, you got the master of our people here. The master of the nation is inside your belly. And this is particularly correlates to a dream that Abdul Muttalib had. In his dream, he woke up and a chain was extending from his loins, out of his body, towards the sky and connecting down to the earth. And Abdul Muttalib says that from this chain, 2 chains spread out, east and west. And upon this chain, leaves started to grow. And upon those leaves, blanketing light started to come from each one of these particular leaves. And on each one of these leaves that are illuminated, Abdul Muttalib said he could see people clinging to it. And when he had this dream interpreted, he was told that one, he would have within his lineage, come from his loins, someone who people from the east and west would follow. And for us, let's say our rational minds, we can confirm this. People from the east and west follow the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he said you should name him Muhammad. And Muhammad is not a common name. He is either the 3rd or 4th person in that particular time, inshallah, to be named Muhammad. On the night the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was born, there are multiple things occurring. One, Amina radiallahu anha, she is going through the pangs of labor. She's going through the struggles of what someone who is in labor will be going through. Those who are attending to her, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on them. One of which, Ayman, the other of which, Fatima bint Uthman. When they are attending to her, they said that when they gazed at the stars, this is particularly from Fatima bint Uthman, when they gazed up and looked at the sky during the nighttime, that it felt as if the stars were so close that at any point in time, the stars would just drop from the sky on top of them. Amina radiallahu anha, while she is there, going through birth, she said, I could see a piercing light driving out from between my legs that covered the horizon. Not only did it cover the horizon, I could see 1,000+ miles all the way to Busra, all the way to places like Syria. At the same particular time, in Persia, Khosros, who is, this is one of 2 superpowers in the world. He is on his throne. And Khosros, this king or president, whatever you would call him, his throne begins to shake. Not only does his throne begins to shake, his balcony, if you all have seen like the Roman emperor, they had these huge balconies they talk to these people from. So there are 14 balconies that immediately collapse while Amina radiallahu anha is giving birth. Likewise, Zoroastrians, people who are fire worshippers, they have a fire that they have kindled for over 1,000 years. And it's funny, you can imagine being a person that's supposed to watch the fire that night. Right? You're just kindling the fire that's been going on for 1,000 years. You think there's no way this fire is going to go out. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala causes this fire that they've been kindling for 1,000 years to go completely out. Likewise, a lake in Iraq goes completely dry. All of these things are happening while the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is heading down the birth canal of our mother Amina. But most importantly, beyond all of these miracles, and they are miracles, these are all miracles that our children should know and be aware of. Everybody, right, who says La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam should know. The emissary of the heavens and the earth, in form and in spirit, now greets us here on this particular plane. And as we said in the beginning, we could say we've all gathered here, particularly because he came in form and in spirit. And so inshallah, this month, Rabi al-Awwal, we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to gather in remembrance of this particular time. Because without his birth, there's none of this for us. Without his reality, there's none of this for us. And so we don't want to be like those. We hope we won't be like those who, in the month of the birth of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, perhaps on a Monday, like the Monday that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born, on a night like the night that Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born, we have anger in our heart. This is a joyous occasion for the people. I want us to think about, particularly for the parents, the very first time you got to hold your child in your arms. Very first time when the doctor said, "Here, there's your baby," and you were able to form that spiritual and that emotional connection with that child, and that child was helpless, and you knew your fathers, who be in there with the nurses, that baby cried just 1 second, just because the nurse touched it with a cold glove, you ready to L the nurse out. Anything that baby want, you ready to do. Likewise, moms, the same way that when that first lay that baby on your chest, it's just a whole nother reality that it takes place. Same way those of us who have nephews, nieces, little cousins, or whatever, that first time that baby carrier came in the house and you lifted up that blanket and you seen that baby sleeping there, what love began to spiral through your heart? What took place that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed to conjoin and start to wrap you all in? Our ecstaticness, our love, right? Our affection for the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam should supersede that. More than someone who just had their newborn baby, and the baby is the only thing you know, and you're the only thing known to the baby, inshallah. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we don't let these days pass without taking advantage of them. This is a time of much salawat, much salutations upon the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's a time of remembering how this affair started, what the middle of it was like, what sacrifices were made, who played a part in it, what are the names that we don't particularly know or mention a lot, who are the people who are standard bearers of this affair, who are the people who've championed this religion. And when I say religion, I mean an affair of faith that surpasses anything we can measure or what have you. I heard someone say that religion for people in this country is now being proposed as someone is a Bears fan, or you like espresso over a latte. So you're a Muslim guy. It's like a latte. This is things that we can't go into, but we need these sort of affirmations, and there are few far greater affirmations than this time that we're in Rabi al-Awwal. Hassan bin Thabit, he says in beautiful poetry, he says, وَأَحْسَنُ مِنْكَ لَمْ تَرَقَتُ عَيْنِي. My eyes have not seen a more handsome person than you. وَأَجْمَلُ مِنْكَ لَمْ تَلِدِ النِّسَاءُ. No woman has given birth to a more beautiful person than you. خُلِقْتَ مُبَرَّأً مِنْ كُلِّ عَيْبٍ. It says, you have been created without any weakness and blemish. كَأَنَّكَ قَدْ خُلِقْتَ كَمَا تَشَاءُ. As if you have been created, as if you have wished to be created. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the same love that would have Hassan bin Thabit, who in the very beginning was told to write cursing things to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The only thing that could descend on his tongue was things of beauty, inshallah. That we be connected, and inshallah we fall in love again. I remember being young and hearing about the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, listening to his shamal, listening to these stories, maybe watching things that my parents were kind of forcing me to watch. And I was like, mashallah, but then I remember coming back to it later as a younger man and falling in love again with the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The oppressed of our nation, the oppressed of our ummah will not become unoppressed without this particular love. The harms that we do upon each other on a day-to-day in our community will not be checked and removed until we begin to again fall into this type of love with the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's just not in name, that's embodiment of his character. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us, to accept our love, and rekindle these things in our heart, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gather us together on a day where we hope to see his face, inshallah. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار أستغفر الله للمؤمنين والمؤمنات يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. الحمد لله رب العالمين، نورك الساري ومددك الجاري واجمعني في كل أدبار وعلي وصحبه يا نور. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات، اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to not leave us to ourselves for the blink of an eye. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to engender the love of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that his awliya have kindled throughout time. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of our elders and our sick and those who are going through trials and tribulations, inshallah, that they are made free of those trials and tribulations, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of all the enmity that shaitan has sowed between the hearts of the believers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sever those ties of enmity, replace them with ties of love and compassion and mercy amongst the believers. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that our youth, they not spend a day without the shade of the reality of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that our youth understand and they connect to the reality of the light of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purifies our intentions, purifies our worship, our ibadah, and inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah ultimately purifies us on the day we will be most need of purification of Yawm al-Qiyamah. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون وذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تفعلون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what we do.